concepts did Weber use to analyze the forms of legitimate domination? First of all, what is meant by legitimate domination?
Legally dominating
Hmm?
with certain legally dominating them with rules and
Legal domination. Okay. But should it be legal? Then why didn't he call it legal domination? For example, I am asking you to answer and you are answering. What do you call this? First of all, is it a domination? Number two, is it legal domination?
uh, it, it is a domination, but it is
It's a
not a
domination.
legal domination.
It is not
It is not a legal domination.
legal domination. Okay. Why is it called domination in the first place?
Uh, I think this is not domination.
It's not domination.
Domination means no, sir. With my will only, I am listening to whatever you're saying. So
With your will.
I yes, sir.
So if I ask you to answer, then you think, okay, you need not answer.
I didn't understand,
And
sir.
if I ask you to answer, suppose you don't want to answer, what will you do? You may say, I
Then
don't
also
want to
I'll
answer.
answer.
But I may say, no, you try. You should try. Then is that not domination?
No. So it is domination. It is
Domination.
traditional domination.
It is traditional domination.
Uh,
What is
yes,
tradition
sir.
in the internet?
Uh, Not on internet, sir, but in a class, you are a teacher. We are
Okay.
students. So
Okay.
it is traditionally believed that teacher should teach a student. So we are following that and we are listening to you, and
Very good answer.
that's it.
Very good answer. Number one, it is domination. That is true. So Weber is not using domination in a negative sense. He's simply saying when somebody is following what somebody else is saying, that's domination. So he is not using the word domination in a negative sense. Okay. But here he introduces two concepts, authority and power. When the follower thinks that it is right, it is legitimate for the other to give order, then it is authority. When the follower doesn't think it is legitimate, then it can be power. So tell me, what is this an example of authority or power?
Can you repeat it again, sir, once?
Okay, when the follower thinks it is legitimate for the superior to give an order, then it is authority. That is the legitimacy. When the follower doesn't think it is not legitimate, then it is power. For example, do you think I have legitimate reason to ask you to do something? Yes or no? Hello? So if you think it is legitimate, then it is authority.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Is it clear, Supraja?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell me, is it authority or power? Is this an instance of authority or power? Maybe connection problem. Vishal, what do you say? Is it authority or power?
Sir, I think problem with my internet and I can't continue answers. It's
That's
getting cut.
okay. Okay. Vishal, is this
Is it
authority or
mine or
power?
yours, sir?
Mine is clear. No, it's yours only. I'm able to follow others. Okay. So Vishal, tell me, is it an example of authority or power?
Yours, sir.
Hmm.
Yours is an authority, sir, because legitimate power is authority.
Exactly. That's it. Legitimate domination is authority. Legitimate domination is authority. Illegitimate domination is power. Obama said once that America should learn to exercise authority and not power. What does he mean? It should use global institutions to get things done. People should think it is legitimate of America to do what it is doing. It is legitimate of America to do what it is doing. Okay. So authority is legitimacy. When there is no legitimacy, it can be power. Okay. Tell me, collector being told by the minister to give job to his recommendation candidate, authority or power?
It appears to be authority because a minister is telling to us, but the
Hmm.
intention is not of the top legal legal power.
So then you call it authority or power?
If we look at the order, it is authority, sir, because a minister has the right to.
You mean to say minister is has the authority to ask the collector to give job to the person he recommended?
To give itself powers,
Huh?
just to give, I mean to
But
forceful,
he is saying to give to a person of his choice.
then it is illegitimate
So what is
authority or power.
it is an example of
Power.
power. But collector says some work, some rural development scheme should be expedited. Power or authority?
It is authority, sir.
Authority. Okay. So it is the legitimacy that is the difference between authority and power. Power is illegitimate, whereas authority is legitimate. And Weber discussed legitimacy can come from three sources: legal source, traditional source, or charismatic source. A leader telling others to follow something, and the followers think that leader knows and leader has to be followed. That is charisma. Okay. So tradition, charisma, and legal rational. These are the three sources of authority. These are the three sources of authority. Okay. So power is about lack of legitimacy. Power does not have the legitimacy. Authority has the legitimacy. Okay. So, and Weber says the entire bureaucracy, in modern day bureaucracy, is based on legal rational authority. Okay. Take the next question. Examine the salient features of Weberian bureaucracy. Examine the salient features of Weberian bureaucracy. Can you tell me what is bureaucracy? Is Feynman IAS Institute, is it an example of bureaucracy? Okay, is this institute an example of bureaucracy? Yes or no? Deepika, what's your answer?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me why is it bureaucracy?
So, it is organized at various levels, and every person has a role, specific role in the organization.
Okay.
And their selection is done based upon their
Okay.
qualifications.
Though, in fact, there are only two people other than me. There is one person, one office boy, and one manager. Okay. So, bureaucracy can be small, it can be big, it can be private, it can be public. Tell me, will I be called bureaucrat in this?
So generally, it is used for public service offices.
No, Weber used it for private and public. Thank you. Weber has used it for private and public. Tell me, in this institute, am I a bureaucrat?
Yes, sir.
No, I am not a bureaucrat. I am the owner because I started it. Okay. Gopi is a bureaucrat. It is like that. Manager is a bureaucrat. So an organization has a ownership component and the remaining are bureaucrats. Ownership sets the goals, sets the hierarchy, takes people on merit. Okay. So any small organization can be bureaucratic. Big organization can be bureaucratic. Tell me, under socialism, will there be bureaucracy or not? USSR, former USSR socialism. Was there bureaucracy?
Sir, if we look at various various jobs that are done, they are different from each other. All of them might not be same or requiring the same level of qualification. So we can say there are bureaucrats in those.
Okay. There are bureaucrats in modern organizations. There cannot be capitalism without bureaucracy. But tell me, in a joint family, brothers are sharing the work, headed by their father. Okay, brothers and their wives and children. Tell me, is that bureaucracy?
Sir, it will depend upon what jobs they are doing.
No. All of them are employed in agriculture.
Okay. If they are more or less doing the same jobs, then it will not be there.
Why do you say if they are doing same jobs and not? Suppose they are doing suppose they are not. They are not doing same jobs, then it is not bureaucracy. For example, one brother owns a shop and another brother is agriculture and the third brother maintains accounts and father supervises. Won't that be bureaucracy?
So here they are selected as per some skills that they have for different jobs.
So is that bureaucracy then?
So it is one of the
No,
points.
tell me yes or no first. Answer directly.
So as per Weberian, I think it is bureaucracy.
Supraja, what is your answer? Is it bureaucracy?
Yes, sir.
Hmm?
Yes, sir.
Yes, how? Vishal, what is your answer?
No.
Hmm?
No.
No, why?
It is a private sphere of life.
But then we said Feynman Institute. Is it bureaucracy?
Yes, it is. Institute is a bureaucracy.
But then a joint family where each brother is doing something different.
It is a family, no? So it's a private sphere of life.
Why do you say it is a private again? You mean family means private? How is Feynman IAS bureaucracy then? If private organization is not bureaucratic, then how is Feynman bureaucratic?
Well, in Feynman Institute, there is specialization
Hmm.
uh, and there is an
What in
intense
essence is bureaucracy? Is it specialization or something else? What in essence is bureaucracy? Hiram, you want to say
it's a
something? Is that family bureaucracy?
Yeah, it's a bureaucracy, sir.
Hmm. No, bureaucracy is about legal rational authority.
But sir, father is heading, is giving instructions.
Father's authority is traditional authority. So bureaucracy is legal rational authority,
Okay.
public or private. So Feynman, legal rational. Okay, but family is not. Family is not merit-based selection. Family is not legal rational. It's traditional authority. Okay. So bureaucratic organization is about first legal rational. Second, it is authority. And third, after that, many features. Division of work, hierarchy, communication system, written rules, merit-based selection, all those things. But on the top of it, there is a non-bureaucratic element, and the basis is legal rational authority. Okay, it can be public or it can be private. It can be socialism or capitalism. Okay, so in a bureaucracy, people are assigned certain tasks, they have authority and they have responsibility, they go by written communication, and they have to do as per the rules and regulations. These rules and regulations are fixed by the owners. In government bureaucracy, the equivalent of owners are political executive. Okay, now tell me, is minister a bureaucrat? Is minister a bureaucrat? Huh?
no.
Minister is not a bureaucrat. Yes, but collector is a bureaucrat. Okay, so bureaucracy is headed by political executive in democracy. Infosys owner, is he a bureaucrat? Yes or no?
No.
No. Ajim Premji, bureaucrat?
No.
No. Jagan Mohan Reddy? Yes or no?
No.
No. Okay. So ownership component is not bureaucracy. Political executive is not bureaucracy. Tradition-based organization is not bureaucracy. Charisma is not bureaucracy. So legal, rational, merit-based, hierarchical, division of work, rules and regulations, written documents, full-time job, all this is bureaucracy. And Weber thought the essential thing to bureaucracy is non-bureaucratic element is setting the goals. Non-bureaucratic sets the goals. And then the bureaucracy, like this. Goals are given. Bureaucracy is like an instrument that sets the goal, that implements these goals. Bureaucrat is an instrument who is supposed to implement the policy set by the politician. So bureaucrat is an instrument. And Weber thought in his model, the model he gave, He called it an ideal type. Ideal type. Ideal type means it is an approximation. Okay, take this question. How does Weber use the notion of ideal type in his theory of bureaucracy? What is ideal type in Weber's theory of bureaucracy? Ideal type means all the features of bureaucracy. Salient features is called ideal type, according to Weber. Ideal type of bureaucracy means salient features of bureaucracy. One can construct an ideal type of terrorism, ideal type of crime. Ideal type does not mean ideal or desirable or average. Ideal type means salient features. Salient features is called ideal type. Okay. And in these salient features, one very important point that Weber makes is, for efficient working of bureaucracy, a bureaucrat should not go by his feelings. To Weber, ideal type is about rules and not feelings. Rules and not feelings. Ideal type is about rules. Okay. He went by rules, not feelings. So why is it so? Because Weber thought if the things are left to the feelings of bureaucrats, they may like certain things, they may not like certain things. So why will they go by what the owner has said? If the people have service motive, they will serve. But if they don't have, then they won't. But the organization may be for service. But the organization may be some kind of a police function. If the people are not interested in police and they're interested only in compassionate activities, then how can police force work? So Weber thought bureaucrats should not have feelings and they should go by rules, because of which bureaucracy becomes efficient. So he thought legal rational authority leads to efficient organization because bureaucrats will go by rules as expected, not by the feelings. So Weberian bureaucrat is not supposed to have compassion, sympathy, service motive, not like that. He's just supposed to efficiently implement the policy framed by the political executive. But these views are rejected in contemporary times. You have so many questions that ask you in ethics paper that how bureaucrats are supposed to violate the rules, not follow the rules, disobey orders, but why? To do something good for the society, to have service motive and things like that. So in contemporary world, Weberian bureaucracy is not glorified. Okay, it is being criticized. But Weber thought people should be rule oriented, people should go by authority. Then only that becomes predictable, and because of which the whole thing will become efficient. So he thought man is going to be like rule implementing person. So this he called rationalization. Rationalization. Rationalization means mechanical implementation of rules, going by the criteria of efficiency, not by one's feelings and sentiments. So in fact, Weber is worried that as capitalism spreads, why capitalism, even in socialism, there is going to be more and more of bureaucracy. More bureaucracy means people are doing what they are being told without feelings. So Weber thought people are going to suffer a lot. So to Weber, rationalization is the problem in capitalism. Rationalization is the problem in capitalism. Okay. So he thought rationalization would be dehumanization. So this rationalization and dehumanization is equivalent to Marx's concept of alienation. Is equivalent to Marx's concept of alienation. But unlike Marx, Weber did not say that capitalism should end and something else should come. No. Weber just explained that things are going to be more bureaucratic and people are going to suffer. That life is going to be much more mechanical. Okay. So that's what Weber thought. Okay. Any questions?
Sir, can you be more elaborate? What is an ideal type?
Elaborate?
Ideal type. I mean, I didn't get
Ideal
you
type.
completely.
Ideal type means what is an ideal type of a class? Ideal type of a class. There is a teacher. There are students. Students ask certain questions. And usually teacher talks much more than the students. And some assignments. Students are expected to obey. Okay. This is an ideal type of class. It is like that.
So while I was going through your
Hmm?
while I was going through your book,
Hmm.
I interpreted something like this. It's much more like a middle path to be followed, like from the Weber's model. He says that an ideal type should be uh, uh, in between specificity and generalness. So
That is true. That is true. Ideal type is general. Why do you think it is a middle path? Specificity means how is this class is a specificity. How is this class is a specificity. But general type means, in fact, general type, there can be general Feynman class or a general class or general civil service class. Anything is possible. So ideal type of anything is possible, but ideal type of anything is not the same thing as any specific class. Ideal type of bureaucracy in India, possible. Ideal type of bureaucracy in Nigeria, that's possible. So how do you compare bureaucracies of Nigeria and India? Go for an ideal type and then see how Nigerian bureaucracy is different from Indian bureaucracy. So that is one way of comparing Nigerian bureaucracy and Indian bureaucracy. It is like that. Ideal type is general. Specific thing is different. So ideal type is simply the listing of certain salient features. Ideal type is neither ideal nor average. It is the salient features. So in the salient features, Weber proposed that a bureaucrat should go by the rules rather than by the feelings. It is in that sense. It is that feature that is being criticized now. So ideal type, salient features, power and authority, capitalism, 406. Weber's characterization of capitalism. Weber's characterization of capitalism. Weber's characterization of capitalism is about Weber thought there is going to be more bureaucracy in capitalism because there are going to be more and more organizations, more bureaucracy, and man is going to be dehumanized and rationalized. Everything is going to be as per the criteria of efficiency. So people are going to be very mechanical. So in that sense, Weber also thought man is going to be alienated, like Marx thought. But Weber did not think what would be an end to capitalism or how alienation would end. Whereas Marx thought there would be communism and that would end. So you can list these features of bureaucracy. We'll discuss value and maintaining objectivity later. Okay. So Weber's views on methodology also we'll discuss. Only one important question is about religion. Discuss the role of Calvinist ethic in the development of capitalism. Calvinist ethic in the development of capitalism. This is an important question. Role of Calvinist ethic in the development of capitalism. So this is about religion, but before that, let us go through Padlet questions. They are also. First of all, what is Weber's main idea on this aspect of capitalism? Maybe you can pull in various inputs to this question. Satish, did you read this account? Did you read this book?
No, sir, not yet.
Okay, fine. Okay, now Vishal, tell me.
Sir, about capitalism, Weber's view on capitalism.
Just tell me some bare points on Weber's view on how capitalism developed.
Well, according to him, it is from the Protestantism.
So Protestant ethic.
Protestant ethics, which again specifically is from Calvinism.
Protestant ethic and more specifically Calvinism. Okay. Led to
Capitalism.
Capitalism.
And why
Just one
it
second.
led to
Just let us look at this idea. So you are sure that one kind of Protestant ethic, that is Calvinism. Calvinism came from Calvin. Okay. And that led to capitalism. Which means, tell me, is this in tune with Marxism or against Marxism? For example, what is capitalism? Economic system or political system or religion?
It is an economic system.
Economic system. And then influenced and coming from?
Religion or
Religious ethic. So is this a statement on materialism or is it against materialism?
It is against materialism.
It is against materialism. That is how Weber is different. Marx thought from base to superstructure. Base is techno-economy and superstructure religion along with others. So economy influences religion is Marxian reasoning. But Weber is saying religion also can influence economy, which means this is a statement on idealism. Idealism. Okay. So this is not materialism. Weber thinks that religion can influence economy. This is not Marxian way of looking at things. This is not materialism. So this is idealism. This is idealism. Okay. So do you see how Weber is distinguishing himself from Marx? Marx gave one dimension of stratification, class, and Weber gave three dimensions, class, status, and power. Marx said materialism is true, but Weber is saying idealism is also true. Weber is not saying this is not true. Materialism is right. I mean, economy can influence religion, but religion can influence economy. So Weber is making modifications to Marxian thought. So Protestant ethic, which is an ideology, which is a religion, a particular form of Protestant ethic, Calvinism, influenced capitalism. And Weber is trying to give evidence. So in that sense, this is a historical method. Weber is using history. Historical, ideal. Okay, so that is one thing. And next, Vishal, can you tell me who started this Protestantism in the first place?
Martin Luther.
Martin Luther. Okay, Martin Luther. So Martin Luther. From Martin Luther to Calvin. Martin Luther to Calvin. Okay. We discussed the difference between sect, cult, and religion. Sect, cult, religion. What is Protestantism is about? Is it a sect or a cult or religion? Sect. Vishal, can you tell me what are the main points of Martin Luther's Protestantism? Then after that, we'll come to Calvinism.
Main points of Martin Luther is that you can achieve or you can communicate with God without some middleman, like priests.
You can do what?
Communicate with gods
You can
without
communicate with God
without the priests or the middleman.
without the Pope, without the intermediary.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
he's rejecting the church.
He is rejecting the church.
Okay, he's rejecting the
Yes.
church. Just let us look at it. Church rejected. Okay. Okay, next.
He says that uh, purification, like committing no sins, is not
Did
possible.
he accept Bible and Jesus?
Yes, in a way he did.
So Bible accepted, Jesus is accepted, but only church. Fine. So did he find fault with the Bible? No. Okay. So tell me then, Pope also has accepted Bible and Jesus, and Martin Luther is also accepting. In what sense Pope and Martin Luther are different?
It's about the
Luther and Pope. Okay.
Luther thought that if uh, predestination is a concept in there. Predestination.
Predestination. Okay, please. Did predestination concept is that given by Luther? So what
Not
are
by Luther.
not by Luther, right? So let us first
Calvinism.
confine to Luther.
Okay, so
Okay, maybe somebody else wants to say. Supraja, do you want to complete? Difference between Pope and Luther.
Sir, I can you repeat the question? Again, my internet connection is unstable.
Okay, okay. You didn't get the question then? Hello? Oh, there is a problem. Okay, Deepika, can you tell me?
The Pope believed in purification and rituals. Um,
Okay. Rituals? No. Next.
Rituals and purification, and Martin Luther King, he thought that he cannot get rid of sinful thoughts, whereas Pope felt that by doing these rituals and practicing purification,
Hmm.
this he can get rid of those. And
No, why can you tell me mainly what is the main point?
Martin Luther King thought that these things cannot help him attain salvation, and
Which things cannot help?
rituals and
Rituals,
rituals. And,
relic worship,
yes,
and then indulgences.
yes.
What is an indulgence?
Getting married.
Indulgence. There was a sale of indulgences going on around that time. Indulgence was a kind of a certificate that you buy something that is being offered by the church, and if you buy these indulgences, then the people your relatives who already died will not have to suffer in hell. It's like that. So if you buy indulgences, you are saving your parents or grandparents from the suffering. And you can also buy indulgences now to avoid suffering after death. So this is kind of paying to avoid consequences of sins. So Pope and Church were giving these certificates and deriving lots of income from this. That's called indulgences. Relic worship. Relic worship means all kinds of relics of saints. If you worship, if you have them, then you are getting merit. So rituals. So these things that Luther said they won't lead to. And then he said that what matters is only faith and grace. Grace from God and your faith in Him. And not even works. Okay, so basically you have to have faith in God, and God should show mercy or grace in you, then you will go to heaven. Nothing to do with indulgences, rituals, relic worship, and more seriously, nothing to do with work also. Martin Luther didn't think if you are celibate you will go to heaven, or if you help people you will go to heaven. Nothing. Martin Luther thought even purification of mind is impossible task. He tried to purify his mind, but he found himself very unsuccessful. So you can't avoid things like sexual thoughts or power thoughts, violent thoughts. So purification of the mind in the sense that the Bible was proposing is impossible. But if some people are going to heaven despite this impossible thing, it means they are not going to heaven because they controlled their mind, because they did some work, but it may be because of simply the faith and God's grace. So God's grace and faith only will lead to heaven, no good works like this. Okay. So that is what Martin Luther proposed. And at that time, Pope was unpopular, and some princes felt that a lot of money was going to the church and they were not having enough money. So it was around that time nationalism was spreading. So criticism of Pope by Martin Luther became very, very popular. So others also supported and people supported. And also Pope was in Rome and this was going on in Germany. And Germans did not like the authority from Rome. So things like nationalism also combined. So Luther became popular and Pope became unpopular. So his message spread. Finally, also led to Calvinism. How is Calvinism related to capitalism? Weber thinks Calvinism gave the idea of this worldly aestheticism. This worldly aestheticism. Calvinism gave this idea of this worldly aestheticism. This worldly aestheticism means you have to be an ascetic. You have to be an ascetic. You have to be an ascetic. Ascetic means work hard, but save and then invest and make money. Okay, that is this worldly aestheticism. Work hard, but don't spend and consume, but save, which means you will invest and then you will make money and then again you save, invest like this. So this worldly aestheticism where people make money as a religious duty, people make money as a religious duty led to capitalism. So that's what Calvinist ethic, Protestant ethic leading to capitalism. Okay. But then, in fact, according to Calvinist ethic, it is not that if you do like this, you will go to heaven. It is proposed that whether you are going to heaven or not is already predetermined. Is already predetermined. But then, if you are going to heaven, you will be behaving like this. That is the reason. If you are already going to heaven, you will be behaving like this. So, this worldly aestheticism is the proof for going to heaven. It is not that this worldly aestheticism will guide a person to heaven. This worldly aestheticism is the evidence to go to heaven. So, because people want to assure others that they are among those who are going to heaven, so they started behaving like this. So, all kinds of strange arguments. Finally, Weber thought it is this kind of ethic that led to capitalism. Okay. Any questions on this? Any questions on logic? So we write about Martin Luther, Calvin, and finally how a religious ethic led to an economic system. But the problem with this is that is there any evidence? It doesn't seem to be. There are certain places this ethic came first, but capitalism did not. There are places where capitalism evolved without ethic. So historians think that there is not enough justification for this hypothesis. And it is also more difficult to check because these things happened long ago and we don't have enough data, and whatever the data there is, that doesn't really support. But then people keep quoting this because after all he is one famous sociologist, and then he was linking religion with an economic system. So that is what is about capitalism and Calvinism. Okay. So you please go through the sequences and you memorize and write. So this is very